What is up, my cutouts? Cardboard Ninja here, coming at you with the supercharged update for Crossout. This is finally live. It's been live for a couple of days, but I didn't have a time to play it extensively until recently, and I have. And so I'm going to go over ye old patch notes with you guys here today, and then give you my take on it and all the other good stuff like that. I'm going to try and be as brief as possible. They're saying obviously there's going to be a new map. The new map is fun. The engine has been updated, which is neat. We'll get to that later. There's global illumination, and yes, the game actually does look very different than it did before. It doesn't look as cartoony, is a good way to put it. Um, Shadows, motion blur, all this good stuff like that. If you guys are interested in not having this thing hog down your machine and or look new, I will be going over that later as well. Make a note of that right now. But yeah, these new features are in the game, and they do make the game look really relatively good. I mean, Crossout has always, in my opinion, looked pretty good. Now it looks even better. They have new effects for peeling out, turning, all sorts of stuff. So your car actually handles entirely differently, but I'll have to go over that later. Spoiler alert, every car handles like dog shit. That's, I don't mean to, yeah, I don't mean to be mean, but they do. The new firing effects for weapons are actually just really sick nasty. Like if you take all the patches and set aside, like machine guns, miniguns, cannons, everything looks really awesome now. I was watching some basically just using imps firing off at someone in a shaded area, and it looks crazy because the tracer effect, the muzzle flash, everything just great. Improved car explosion effect. I'm gonna get into that later. The effects of module destruction have been reworked. So long story short, if you blow up a part of someone's car that's not a piece of crap, there's like a miniature explosion, or you can see it fly off, all sorts of stuff so you can tell. Additionally, the UI has been improved so that if you shoot off the last of someone's weapons, you get a little pop-up on the right-hand side of the screen with a point value, of course, but it says disarmed. In other words, you've actually removed all their weapons, or immobilized if you've removed all of their movement parts. They said they improved the camera behavior and added a blur effect when moving at high speed. In other words, against your will, they've added a blur effect. They've updated weapon destruction effects, as mentioned above. They've reworked the effect of the starting the vehicle's self-destruction. So anybody who's played Crossout for a while may recall that every cabin has has a cockpit location. When you activate self-destruct, it glows red. And so you look for that red glow, you know the car is about to explode, you run away. But one of the things that you can do usually hide that cabin so people can't see when you've activated self-destruct, etc. They've updated that effect, so now the cabin starts to burn down, like light on fire, blaze, and then explode. So it's much more difficult to conceal, and it's more easy to tell the stage that the person is at in their self-destruct process. So if you're paying attention to them, you might be able to avoid being blown up because you're like, wait a minute, you're super on fire. You're clearly about to die. Yeah, and they say they've improved the effects for tracks and hovers. We'll see about that. The camera is now located a little closer to the armored car. This is true. It makes the game feel more drive-y. However, there are ups and downs to that. Don't worry, I will get to that later. I played a few matches with the camera moved closer. It's not terribly bad, to be honest, but with some other changes combined, you may end up getting heavily dominated. If you enjoy the close-in camera style games, like Wreckfest or anything like that, and you like the camera being close to your vehicle, this is a good change. If you don't, this is not a very good change. But don't worry, more to come. The bigger your armored car, the more of its lower part is being cut off. This is has to do with the fact that if your camera is closer to the screen, you don't see as much of it. They've returned point of convergence for crosshairs to the center of the screen. I honestly didn't even know that the point of convergence for crosshairs wasn't the center of the screen. They've slightly shifted the camera position to the front of the car relative to the center of mass. So basically, the idea is that originally the point of the camera is actually further back. Now they just simply moved it forward. They say that's for driving maneuvers. Well, we'll see if that's overly important. They said that to improve feedback from the control of the vehicle, the camera's reaction to the impulse created by the movement of the armored car was enhanced. When you start moving, the camera moves to the rear of the car for a while. When you hit brakes, it moves to the front. This is somewhat realistic. It's not as arcadey as it once was. It kind of gives you that dynamic feel of your car jerking around, which is neat. They've implemented a dynamic field of view parameter, which is significantly enhances the feeling of the vehicle's speed and slightly improves visibility for small and fast armored vehicles. This is true. You feel like you're going faster. You feel like you're going faster. However, you are not going faster. This is key. Just gotta point that out. You are not going any faster. You feel like you're going faster. You are not any harder to hit than you were before. To improve the convergence during the battle, we reduce the number of scrolls required to zoom in and to improve the convenience during battle. Jesus. They've reduced the number of scrolls required to zoom in and out of the camera. So basically, they've removed some of the incremental jumps. So if you liked being one tick further in from the most zoomed out, that's gone. It's basically like 3 ticks now on the mouse wheel. Sound, they've improved the sound. They've added slip and grip sounds for your wheels as you power slide through stuff. Long reloads, weapons now have an audible tick so that you know when they fire, basically cannons and avalanche. I think Scorpion, maybe. New sounds for explosions. The spike sounds different. Added a sound of burning wreckage left after the vehicle has been destroyed. I'm glad they added the sound, but what they didn't tell you was there's burning wreckage after vehicles are destroyed. We're going to touch up on that a little later, but spoiler alert, lances are fucked. Added a countdown sound before the start of battle. Cool. Updated sound effects for victory and defeat in battle. Added sounds for notification of destruction and so on and so on. Basically, there's new sounds. Also, the Phoenix sound's new. The exhibition and blueprints function entirely differently. It's really weird. So instead of just going forth and liking a single build like we used to, you can basically subscribe to a player, and whenever they put something new on the exhibition, you are alerted there's a new vehicle that they have put up so that you can subscribe to me now in Crossout and see the crappy cars that I build. But yeah, so now there exists that. Shared blueprints. The search function is also more weird. The UI is entirely different. It looks more like a mobile game, but it's not overly bad. Oh, you can now choose from with whom you'd like to share your blueprint on the exhibition via the in-game chat. So basically, you can say all players or your friends or only subscribers. That's actually kind of a thing. So this way, you can actually exchange builds with your clan mates without someone sniping your builds. Good to know. You can share your blueprints with certain players you have on your friends list, and so on and so forth. Not bad. Let's see here. They've updated the appearance of the garage screen. And now incoming damage is displayed as markers around the vehicle. This is a new setting that is shown in the options. I will note that later. This is very much like Call of Duty. If you're taking shots from the right or the left, it'll highlight very briefly before they blow your brains out. It now does that here. This is for aiming mode only, but you can make it all the time if you so choose. If you have good map awareness, you don't need this. If you don't have good map awareness, then you should activate this. Let's see here. Now during the capture phase, the time remaining is shown. This is awesome. So instead of guessing, how much time do I have to get to A or B or C before I lose the game immediately? It just tells you. That's good stuff. This is the coolest thing. So when destroying explosive modules, damage from their explosion will be displayed separately with a corresponding icon. So what this means is if ever you've been in a fight and you shot someone and then with a cannon and you're like, wow, I just did 3,000 damage. I must have popped them. Or sometimes you hit them and you do 400 damage and you don't know if you popped them or not. Now there's a literal explosive icon that shows up and it's next to the number in gold. So you know that you have ammo crate, you've hit him in ammo crate, you've hit him in the generator, and so on and so forth. Really useful. Updated information about events and battles. Font is entirely different. The color font is different. DualShock 4 and DualSense controllers is now in there. I believe that's the PlayStation controllers. Start game, screen changed, etc., etc. Store improvements. Cool. Gameplay changes. So this is the thing. Now a burning wreckage remains after the armor core has been destroyed in battle. The wreckage remains on the battlefield until the battle ends, unless respawning after destruction is nailed in the battle. The carcass is a physical object, i.e. is an obstacle that cannot be passed through and can be used as cover in some situations. This is a very important change that they kind of just put in there. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, no. This is a huge problem. This outright destroys lance builds. If you're a lance build and you're used to killing like 2 people, you will not do that anymore. You're going to kill 1 guy. And the reason why is because if you kill them successfully, they still exist as an object and your lances still see them as an enemy. So your lances will still blow up on them. And you're going to use all of your lances on 1 guy. It's kind of busted in that regard. Other than that, the physical wreckage itself is still allied, as far as I can tell, to the team that it was on before. So if you blow up someone on the opposing team, they can't shoot off the parts that are left on that build. So also the wreckage itself is just a dead version of whatever was left on that build. So if you manage to, I don't know, destroy someone via cabin damage alone, their car will remain intact, completely like as a full build, blocking the way. And you have to blow it up. You either blow it up or push it out of the way, etc., as per net standard. The upside is all of the wreckages, regardless of the type of vehicle it was, have like almost no mass whatsoever. So you can push them out of the way relatively easily. But with that said, they do block a lot of shots. It's really frustrating in raids and things like that. It's very interesting. Updated vegetation, reconfigured all physical materials on in-game locations, changed the control of vehicles. So these changes, please note the big bold red text, are reversible. They're saying now cars with these moving parts, which are Omnis, those are the Omni wheels, the legs, such as the Omni and the ML200s, hovers, and all that good stuff like that. Now cars with these movement parts turn in the same direction that where the camera is directed. Strafing these movement parts is changed by A and D. Previous strafe keys are now only can turn the car in 45 degrees. The keys responsible for setting the vehicle's center is T. All this crap like this. Funny story. This is all undoable. If this is new Neo Crossout, we're going to call it. If you want classic Crossout, there is a way to undo it all. I will be showing you that at the end of the video or after I'm done going over the patch notes, whichever comes first, which would be, it's going to be at the end of the video. Sorry. And they do note that you can go back to the old settings. This is very important because of the new settings that are happening with hovers and the like. Hovers, suspension's animation of hovers has been improved. Now builds on hovers lean more for acceleration speed. And this is true. You lean a lot more. Like you are like a wobbly boat. It's kind of weird. The stabilization of a vehicle with hovers now depends on the shape of the hover base. Long story short, they want your hovers wide and out, or else you'll be nice and flippy. However, this change has effectively ended sideways hovers that have their hovers either 1 or 2 pins apart from each other, because you are too narrow to actually have a wide enough hover base that won't prevent you from flipping upside down and instantaneously becoming useless. But most sideways hovers, which means all Clan Wars builds, all International Space Station builds, all those are basically unaffected by this change. It sounded scary. It is not scary. Sideways hovers, just fine, especially considering the previous change of the camera settings is optional. So you can still do sideways hovers. That has not changed one bit. And not only that, let's continue on. Icarus 4s now serve as a basis for medium builds. They have higher tonnage, durability, and stabilization, but lower acceleration and top speed. This has always been the case. Icarus 7s now serve as a basis for lightweight builds. It is lower tonnage and durability, lower stabilization, but higher acceleration and top speed. Just they're saying that you can obviously swap in your 4s for 7s and 7s for 4s, and due to this, there was a market upheaval when people were like, wait a minute, well then we're just going to buy all the Icarus 4s, and people bought a whole fuckload of Icarus 4s, so that when this change came about, they were able to change their Icarus 4s into Icarus 7s. This made Icarus 4 price go up, Icarus 7 price come down. Doesn't really matter. What does matter is this. What they didn't say here, this is and this is interesting, I'll just tell you this right now, they flat buffed Icarus 7s. Straight buffed. They did not change. It's not listed anywhere here in these patch notes. Icarus 7s do no longer have a 75 km/h top speed. It's an 85 km/h top speed. Not only did they not mention this, for some reason, Icarus 7s also got a mass increase. So, you know, if you put more, tonnage increase, sorry, not mass increase, tonnage increase. So you can have less Icarus 7s to achieve the exact same mass that you could have on a build before. I know this because I had a whole bunch of hovers, and every one of my hovers was built to within 3 kilograms of mass cap, as you do whenever you make a build. Every one of them now has tons of spare weight, and I'm like, where is all the spare weight coming from? The Icarus 7s. They made Icarus 7s stronger in every way, shape, and form. I do not know how this got in, but it's in. Like, you now can... I don't even know what to say. I believe Icarus 7s now have the same mass limit as Icarus 4s used to have pre-patch. They're insane. They're insane. But don't worry, we'll get to how all of this stuff has unexpectedly changed the game coming up. Mechanical legs. Vehicles on mechanical legs have become more resistant to pushing. Somewhat true. Now vehicles equipped with mechanical legs can climb steep slopes. Insanely true. It's actually quite different now. Steep slopes no longer stop legs, so you can actually go up and down hills. It's actually not bad. the acceleration of the legs has been averaged. Long story short, originally, if you were already moving, let's say towards an enemy, and suddenly you had to turn left or right, because you had a high acceleration or you had a high top speed already moving, high is relative, 40 kilometers an hour, 30, 50 kilometers an hour, whatever. If you turned left and right, you would suddenly jerk left or right. But if you were stationary and you tried to turn left and right, it took forever to turn left and right. They normalized this to an average amount of speed, regardless of the acceleration that you have going. Speed penalties now affect you even more on legs. So, for example, if you're on a super heavy build and you're trying to turn left or right, you will be just as sluggish and crappy as if you are on wheels. Augers and Omnis, they added a new perk for the Omni wheel. They say the Omni wheel used to just be, it's a track. Now it's reduces the rate of spread increase by 33% when firing or when turning weapons. So spread rate decreased by 33%. The bonus decreases proportionally with other movement parts. In other words, if you combine Omnis with other things, you get less of a bonus. They added a new perk for the meat grinder or the auger. Long story short, the heavier your build, the more damage you deal. Because augers on very light builds and augers on very heavy builds, I believe, only did like 20 damage or something like that. And so now it gets up to 200% bonus damage, I believe. So I think it's 300% total if you're ever up to 15,000 kilograms. They increase the strafe speed on these movement parts when the car is already going in a straight line. Tracks, the turning speed of tracked vehicles has been reduced. This means that it is harder for you to turn on tracks because, if it's one thing that everyone knows, the track meta has been just too dominant in Crossout, and it needs need to be need to be put in its place. They need to bring it down a bit. They need to nerf those tracks. That's what's been dominating Crossout. The dependence of the tracked vehicle's turning speed is on its mass has been increased, meaning if you're actually a heavy tracked vehicle, you have even worse tracked speed. The turning radius of some tracks has been slightly changed, obviously, and fixed a bug due to which the car could abruptly change direction after running into a bump or other obstacle. This is the small tracks. If anyone remembers, if you are used to run like 4 small tracks, you hit something while you're turning, then you just spin out. Supposedly they say they can fix that. Wheels, the turning speed of wheels was reduced and the dependence of their turning speed on the mass of the vehicle was increased. What this means is cars handle like dog shit now. Vehicle suspension now tilts. When the speed vectors change, the handbrake mechanics were also changed. Now using the handbrake will lock only the rear wheels. So ST wheels or regular wheels no longer matters. Your rear wheels, the wheels in the back, are the ones that stop. This means that you can no longer bring all steering wheels and then hold down the space bar to not move but still maintain 100% of your acceleration. That's done and dusted. This has had a very unexpected result on Leviathans, handling like complete dog shit. So, warning, if you if you're your Clan Wars Leviathans player and you are the one who is designated to rock your levy in C-Dub, word to the wise, you should go test drive that thing right now and feel how dog shit the controls are. It's bad. It's very bad. It's abysmally bad. Wheels are very, very, very impractical to use on Leviathans right now because of how it works. But, I mean, maybe you should throw a couple hovers on there. Continuing on, and I'm not even being facetious, continuing on, Witch Hunt is out. This is the Capture the Rabbit, is it? I believe that's the name of the game mode. Long story short, there's some balloons. Go pick up the balloons and try and hold on to the balloons the most for points. And they give you the ability to get fusions during this event. They released the fusion list early this year, and that is important only because of the fact that there are different fusions in this event than normal. The reason why I bring this up is because certain fusions, such as the Retcher, are unbelievably more powerful than normal. The typical previous Retcher fusion that is on offer and has been on offer for the past however many years has been 15% more reduced spread. Not more, but basically reduced spread, so you have a tighter spread of fire. No, they said, screw that. No, this time around, the Retcher fusion is 15% a projectile velocity. A lot of good fusions in this event. Highly suggest everyone take advantage of that while they still have the opportunity. There is now the Catalina that's in the game. The pack is, of course, silly. It gives you a couple grenade launchers, but the problem is the days they give you access to. Well, I'll go over this. First, the new cabin, the Catalina. It is not a legendary cabin. I thought it would be, but it is not. It is instead an epic cabin. It is 95 kilometers an hour, as you noted here. And the perk of this light cabin is that you do 15% less damage with all of your weapons, but as you deal damage during the a round, your damage will increase up to 80%. Minus 15%, of course, means that you're dealing somewhere in the neighborhood of 75% bonus damage over base, but there are problems. One, we've people online have tested it. Depending on the rarity of your weapons, depends on the damage thresholds that you need to hit in order to gain the damage bonus. One, two, it also has a limiter of you cannot gain a stack more than once every 3 seconds, so it doesn't matter how hard you hit. And number three, I think the devs may have seen my previous video when I redid this in the dark and was like, wait a minute, this could be a problem. The bonus accumulation rate is reduced for Leviathans. So this cabin looked like it was going to replace the cockpit as the #1 Leviathan cabin. However, someone decided to say, wait a minute, don't Leviathans do somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 damage a second? And they do. If your Leviathan is appropriately geared, you should do somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 8,000 damage a second. They're like, oh, whoopsie. And so they fixed it, and they were like, no. Also, ram damage module, explosion damage, etc. are not taken into account. So that means that if you're shooting someone and you blow up an ammo crate, that doesn't count as damage that you deal to stack up the Catalina. That's not terrible. It's an okay cabin. Yeah, it's an okay cabin. I don't think it's that great yet. I don't see anything exceptional about it. By the way, I do think the co-driver looks amazing. But this new module, the Days, I called this out earlier. I didn't think it was going to be a very good idea to put this in the game. They put it in the game anyway. It's extremely powerful. I thought it was just going to disable your weapons. That's not true. When the Days is activated, it becomes high explosive, but then I'm sorry, I highlighted the wrong part. It is right here. It becomes explosive, but here's the thing that's really interesting about the Days module. It instantaneously disables all weapons of your opponents within 35 meters for 2 seconds. However, the module has a 6-second active time, and every 3 seconds, it sends out another pulse to disable everyone's weapons for 2 seconds. So you basically get 3 pulses of disabling someone's weapons. You know, shotgun meta, as though, you know, shotguns needed even more of a buff. But beyond that, there's presently a fusion available that increases the active time of the Days by 50%. Yeah. Which means that it goes from 6 to 9 seconds, I believe. And I think I might actually be wrong. I think it's even 9 seconds on live, but it doesn't really matter. So that's a problem. That's a problem. The Days is kind of busted. And speaking of Leviathans, clearly you use this against Leviathans and Levy CW. You just have 3 cars with Dazes. I mentioned this in my previous video. You have 3 cars with Dazes, and you just drive near the opponent's Leviathan and turn it on. GG. You just shut off their Leviathan, and it becomes just a cluster click. But then again, the Leviathan will probably also have a Daze on it, and everybody on the opposing team will have Dazes, so it's just going to be Daze meta. Everyone's just turning that stuff on. New packs, etc. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the new map. The bridge map has been updated. You can actually blow up segments of the bridge, which is actually pretty boss. When I first came across this, I was like, what? What is this? Trees on Ashen Ring are now destructible objects, so you no longer have to crash into those and get entirely embarrassed. Anything else? Brawls will be updated, and so on and so forth. Final changes. The Gorilla, which is available to everyone, it's the starting cabin, worst cabin in the game, and I will unfortunately have to update my tier list because of this, no longer has the lowest energy provided in the game of 7. They're just like, fuck it, it gives 8. So there you go. It's now up to 8 energy. The power score has been increased, and the durability has been increased. The SM Hornet has had its power score increased, and its cooldown increased by 32%. Don't know why. The Hornet isn't that great. I mean, they just wanted to change the base parts, so that's fine. Common parts, use the white ones. The amount of energy increased by 1 point, and the power score has been increased by 100. So this means that if you were looking at a common cabin, such as the Duster, the energy has been increased by 1, which is actually pretty busted. Isn't the Duster's energy 11? No, the Duster's energy is, I think, 10 or 11. So basically that makes it on par with the Growl, so that's a pretty big change. The Avenger 57mm, which is known to be the worst cannon in the it's absolutely the worst cannon in the entire game, completely worthless. Its DPS is abysmal, etc., has been changed. No longer requires 5 energy, requires 4. So now it's the only cannon in the entire game that you can have 4 of on one build. Wait. 5, 10, 15, 4, 8, 12, 16. Yeah, you can have 4 on one build. Sorry. Yeah, I was right. The mass has been reduced, so you can apparently get 4 on one build. Power score has been reduced, which is fine because the weapon is still garbage. The projectile damage has been increased by 11%. which is good. That's the bullet damage, not the explosive damage. The ammo has been increased from 12 to 35 because you could only get a couple shots with the Avenger anyway, but they reduced the projectile speed by 9%. The projectile speed of the Avenger has already been kind of balls, and now it's just a little bit worse. And the Spark 3 no longer nerfs people for 72%. It's down to 60% when fully stacked, and its 9% has been nerfed down to 7.5% on the per tick, etc. And they've done that also with the Flash. The breaker has been changed so that it works basically like the parser. I tested this on live, and basically it no longer cares if you overheat the gun. So they just erased that. They're like, no, whoops, never mind. Whoopsie, that's a dumb idea. It's stupid if you have to overheat the breaker. It's kind of like a worse Gravistar or whatever. So instead, if you don't fire for almost 1 second, the next shot you fire will have increased range, decreased spread, and increased damage. And the more radiators you have, the higher this bonus. Meaning, as long as you're not making use of the radiator's ability to affect your gun, you're going to get more on these tap fire shots, as it were. So for those of us who are unfamiliar, this is effectively the parser. The breaker basically became a hybrid between like a parser and a thunderbolt, effectively. I don't know how that's going to change things. I actually should have checked the market. I'll make a note of that right here, just so I do that towards the end of the video, to see if people are interpreting this change as the breaker is going to be worth even less money now than they thought it was before. With the previous perk, I felt the breaker was ultimately no different than it was before, regardless of the number of nerfs that came down on it. But with this, it's a different weapon. And as a different weapon, you know, all bets are off on that. Continuing on, the model of the reinforced track has been reworked, the model of the tribe has been improved, and a bunch of bug fixes. Big wheel, back here. Nothing overly important. So, some of the things that they decided to change and fix were most of the driving exploits. And one of the things that I mentioned prior was like one of the driving exploits was to the Omni wheels and was to the augers, and it looks like they fixed that exploit, and that's the reason why the augers and the Omni wheels have all had all these changes to them and all that good stuff like that. So, what do I think about all this stuff? Things that are better than I thought they were going to be, because again, there was a lot of doom and gloom related to this patch. The graphics are nice. Everything looks great, and the best part is they're optional. You do not need to lock those in permanently. You do not need Crossout to look any different than it used to, really. So that's good. The control changes are optional, which is phenomenal because a lot of people were, you know, bitching real loud on Reddit. They're like, these control changes are awful. There's a destructible bridge. That's awesome. I hope they bring in more destructible environment so that you can change the battlefield. That's pretty boss. They claim that you could get stuck on walls less. They can make whatever claims they want. You kind of don't get stuck on walls as much, but you still absolutely can get stuck on walls. And of course, legs are able to climb significantly more reasonably. Things that are expected is the death of mini hovers. This patch truly does end mini hovers, unless you're planning on putting stilts on the side of your hovers, which you probably can do. Hovers that are extraordinarily thin, again, when you have a hover base of only 2 pins or less distance between the hovers, they're just not stable enough to stay upright. Things that are worse than I thought was the nerf to the lances. My God, the sheer fact that lances can't do anything now is pretty busted. I don't like the lance playstyle, don't get me wrong, but that was a shadow nerf that I didn't see coming. The Leviathan's handling like dog shit, didn't see that coming. Yeah. Also, the hovers being entirely straight buffed, didn't see that coming. But the thing that I super never saw coming, and this is the thing that that really gets me, there's a new meta. And that new meta is the wheeled hover. The wheeled hover meta is real right now. I don't know what they're going to do. They might revert some stuff because of how crazy this is. But people have decided to just take hovers and Omni wheels, or hovers and low profile wheels, or hovers and camber wheels. Yeah, camber wheels. And this makes it so the hover rides on the ground. But hovers are extremely strong right now. They are very maneuverable. They're very fast. They are everything that we never expected to be back in a Crossout. And it's basically taking all of those benefits of being super ultra fast, super ultra maneuverable, super ultra nimble, and putting on a build that's basically on the ground where tires and tracks should be. And coupled with the nerf to wheels, because there was a massive nerf to wheels. They said it here that they made it so wheels suck. And they're like, oh yeah, no, we just made driving effects different. Yeah, no, they didn't. They shit on wheels. Combined with being shit on wheels, you've got some extreme domination going on here, where you've got builds that are extraordinarily more nimble than they should be, capable of taking out vehicles that would normally be viable, but due to the fact that every movement part in the game except for hovers got like kneecapped, you just get outperformed. It's crazy. Never thought I'd see that coming. Or at least I certainly didn't see it coming. And as another aside, hopefully I'll have gameplay video up right here of me playing on my hover, even though as bad as I am. Hovers are faster. You're 85 kilometers an hour fast. You have insane acceleration, faster acceleration than you did before. If you were good at dancing, and combine this with the fact that the camera settings are optional, if you were good at dancing the dance and outperforming dogs at point blank range, now we're reduce their turn rate by about 10 to 15% and increase your turn rate and acceleration rate by 15% or more. You're just gonna shit down from space on them. It's crazy. Hovers are even stronger than they've ever been by relation when you relate them to what their contemporaries are, which would be legs, it would be tracks, and so on and so forth. Hovers are in a very, 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 very good spot right now, more powerful than they've ever been, especially if you're using Icarus 7s. I don't know about Icarus 4s, but Icarus 7s, insane. So hovers and wheeled hovers are presently the winners of this patch if you had to set winners and losers. And losers are definitely tracks, wheels, legs, anything else, and so on and so forth. But other than that, the game is playable. So with that, I will go over to some video of the game itself and teach you guys how to turn off all of these new settings. One moment. Alrighty, here we are in the game, yada, 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 etc. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the market, check the breakers, see what is happening with this. Seems that not much has changed. The value went up, it's gone down a little. It looks like people aren't overly scared of the changes. A lot of people were scared, and they're no longer scared. So we've taken a look at that. So let's assume that you are like me, and you do not like any of these changes. I'm not necessarily saying I don't like the changes, but I'm old, I don't want to change, nobody wants to change. So crap open the ye old interface and go to the general tab. This is the camera distance. This distance is what they said they changed initially, that the camera is closer to the vehicle. I'm presently zoomed out as far as possible, and this is what they've changed so you feel like you're down close and in the fight. However, if you don't like that, which you could see based on my settings, I did not, you can set it to 1.0. 1.0 is what it used to be pre-patch. So if you used to play zoomed out, which I did, just set it to 1.0 and you'll be fine. As you can see, when you scroll wheel in, there's only like 2 jumps. 1, 2, 1, 2, as it were. So watch out for that. They also mentioned that difference. Other than that, there are no other changes on general that I believe you need to look at, but everything else I believe is under interface. Under interface, you're going to want to scroll down. There is damage direction. Damage direction is the thing that I told you where if you're taking damage and you want to play it like Call of Duty and you can see which direction the damage is coming in at you from, you want that on, off, or only in scope. The default right now is only in scope, so if you're scoped in and someone shoots you, it lets you know using those damage markers, hey, you're getting shot in the right, you're getting shot in the back, etc. You can have it on and let you know that you're being shot at all times. If you looked at those movement modes and you hated them and you were a sideways hover player and you didn't want to deal with that, uncheck this. This is defaulted to on. Uncheck this and then uncheck this. If you hold on. You can't see it as well because of I'm presently in the way. I'll try and get that. There we go. Sorry about that. Embarrassing. But it's called swap steering and strafing. This has to do with your keybinds of WSAD, etc. Everyone who's used to turning on sideways hovers knows that it is EQWS, and then you can go and do sideways hover stuff as you do. But without that being set, it's going to be messed up. So if you're used to EQWS as your settings, but you don't go to the interface and uncheck this, things are going to go really bad for you. Like, really, really bad for you. So make sure that if you want your classic settings, the things that you've been used to, the things that you've played for years, etc., go into interface, uncheck swap steering and strafing, you'll be fine, and uncheck bind turning to camera, you will be just fine. The third thing that you need to know, and this is I believe the last thing that you need to know about, is motion blur. If you don't like motion blur, turn it off. If you don't like blur intensity, turn it down. And that's just about it. They've added in pretty much nothing else that I'm aware of. I mean, lens flare they did add, and vignetting that they did add. You can turn all those things off in your video settings. You'll figure it out. You guys are smart folks, etc. But yeah, those are the changes, effectively. If you go in and undo those settings, the game will play exactly like it used to. So, hope you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys are not taking this patch too seriously. It's not the patch everyone thought it would be. Some people thought that this patch was going to show up and make things insanely worse. Some people thought that this patch was going to show up and ruin the game. Some people said that it was going to make the game. Honestly, it comes out in the middle of all that. It's not going to ruin the game. It's not going to make the game. I don't think it's going to attract an overly great amount of new players. And I don't think a great amount of players are going to quit. I have had people join me on my live stream and say, the game is terrible and I want to quit. But I don't think that they knew about the fact that you can just simply undo many of the settings. However, the one thing is for certain, the sideways hovers are dead. Not all of them, sorry, let me rephrase, these tiny sideways hovers, they are in a very bad way. Because even though you can, this is actually a little bit further, I think this is 4 wide. As a 4 wide sideways hover, it works. But anything that's like 2, if it's 2, it's going to flip immediately. So we go to the exhibition. I'm fairly positive. Sorry, I didn't have EQWS set either. Also, the searching exhibition for parts and everything else is also entirely different than it used to be. We'll just search for any Icarus 7 build. We'll just go for power. Is there a way to do power score? There used to be. Nope. Oh, it looks like everyone's just making wide Icarus builds now, because obviously before if you don't, you'll just tip over. So yeah, long story short, if you had a 2x2 Icarus, Icarus 7 build, it'll flip over. It'll just fall over. It's embarrassing. It's funny. Everyone laughs, but they're basically dead. Other than that, everything is as I said. Hopefully you guys are enjoying. Hope you guys like the video. Hope I gave you guys some useful information. Leave your likes, comments, all that stuff down in the comment section below. Peace.